Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Three Men in the Football podcast. How are we doing, lads?
Good. Simon Thomas, how are we?
Hi, lads. Well, I'm not doing great, to be honest.
What's up, Thomas?
Don't wind me up today, Darren. I'm warning you now.
It's not a good weekend for us Liverpool supporters, Daz.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, but Darren, you're used to it.
Well, I think you are now. You've had 6 weeks or something, haven't you?
Shots fired.
It's early. It started.
Yeah, it's a rough weekend. It was obviously a big one for us with the derby. Definitely didn't go our way. I mean, I don't know about you two watching it. I know how Thomas will have watched it, but it was hard work because Liverpool had the ball for so much of the game, but just didn't appear to have any kind of drive to do anything with it.
I think we spoke on the Saturday live session where we talked about, I think Thomas brought it up about being too pedestrian at times, moving the ball too slow. But then they had a couple of, I mean, Pickford was outstanding, but they had a couple of good chances, but they weren't clinical enough that they, like you would expect Liverpool to be.
Yeah, we definitely had chances. I mean, I especially at the start of the second half, they needed a reaction, and it looked like Klopp had tried to force that reaction, especially with them talking to them out on the pitch as well.
Yeah.
But that first 10 minutes were great in terms of activity and getting at them, but just couldn't put it away.
I thought Ederson's volley was superb, and then the save from Pickford was just as good. And then Salah had a chance, but Pickford came out. Half chance, you'd probably say it was, rather than a proper chance. And it just...
If he'd have scuffed it, though, it'd have gone in, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? It's one of them. And you know what? You need a bit of looking football. You know, Villa have had it over the last 12 months to 18 months, certainly. You know, and watching a couple of games today, you need that little bit of looking football.
Yeah.
However, I thought tactically, Ancelotti was spot on. They got a good early goal, which almost set the way for the game then. You know, the goal was a great finish, great pass, and it set up the game. And we knew that was going to be the game plan. I think everyone you spoke to, that was going to be the game plan. But to carry it out as well as Everton did at times and defended well, I don't know if Liverpool just don't seem to have that edge that they had last year, you know. And last year, by the way, Liverpool were outstanding to watch. Absolutely outstanding. I loved watching them as a football fan. But I just think there's something not quite there at the moment.
Yeah, to start off with, this really pains me to say it, but the better team won yesterday. They created the more clear-cut chances, and they took the chances when they got them. So that was me praising Everton. And then I don't think it was a penalty. I think it was a very harsh decision. It didn't make a difference. We didn't look like scoring. And then when our players did have the chance, they just snatched at it, or they took an extra touch. Firmino had a couple of really good opportunities where it opened up for him to have a shot. And if he'd have just put his laces through the ball when it hit his feet, instead of taking that touch, we might be talking about a different result. But as it was, we just weren't good enough. Simon, you were right. Klopp sent them out at half-time after half-time, and they had a good go. And they were breaking the lines, and we had them turning and running back to goal, and we were causing little bits of problems for them. But it just didn't last long enough. And then we ran out of ideas, and Calvert-Lewin come on, and then they had another focal point up front. And that lad's outstanding in the air. The way he brought that ball down on his chest for that long ball, he just jumped early, lent on Phillips, who I thought was excellent when he come on for Henderson. But to be honest, just things aren't going for us. I'm bitterly disappointed with the results and bitterly disappointed with our results of late in our performances. But, you know, it can't get any worse. That's all, you know. It can't get any worse. You know, all I can say is that I would get rid of every single player we've got as long as we keep hold of Klopp, because he's the difference between us regressing to becoming a mid-table poor side as we were and have been in the past under other managers. He can build another team and we can go on and challenge again. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we weren't challenging for the title next year. So I can't be too disillusioned, but I've had a season ticket for 22 years, and I've had some poor defeats and I've been disappointed, but are really weighing down on me the results. But I think it's because I've come from such a big high with Liverpool winning the league last year to the performances that we've seen this year. and obviously we're on lockdown as well. So you feel me Liverpool on a Saturday afternoon is your release, isn't it? And you're not going out, you're not going to work. It's tough. So I felt this defeat has been tough to take, and even half a bottle of rum didn't help me feel better.
I phoned him yesterday. He was already on the rum and diet.
Can I just touch on the penalty, because I don't think it was a penalty personally. However, there's a rule change, and the word is intent. They took that word out. If you remember David Luiz a couple of weeks ago for Arsenal, I was fuming because they gave away a penalty, and he was like, he didn't intend to do it, and he got sent off for it, I think.
Yeah.
The rule is intent. For me, it was never a penalty. We need to really look at some of these rules at the moment, because I think they're just putting the referees in very difficult situations. And the word intent in that penalty, I think, made up his mind. It was a weird one.
At the time, right, when it happened, I didn't see him knee Trent in the back of the head. All I seen was when Trent went down, his right leg come across. And it didn't look like he was kicking out at him, but it certainly come across. And I'm thinking, I don't know whether he kicked the leg out at him there to trip him up. But what I hadn't seen was him knee him in the back of the head on the way over. If I hadn't seen that, then I'd say it's maybe not as close. But he's fallen over, Trent. He's already stumbling before he gets to the fact where Trent catches him with his leg.
Yeah, I think it was just momentum of both players.
Yeah.
And it just happened. I would be absolutely devastated if that was a penalty against us, Villa, or even me on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
But I think the rule doesn't help the referee there at all, because there was no intent by anybody.
Yeah.
But the word intent has really cost that penalty there for me. And I think that needs to be looked at properly in the close season, because that's causing many issues now and putting referees in difficult situations.
Yeah,
no, it's not. Sorry, Thomas. That David Luiz one was exactly the same.
Yeah, I agree with you, the David Luiz one and the intent, but the intent or non-intent was the reason for his sending off. He didn't mean to catch the player, but he brought the player down in the David Luiz instance. So even though I didn't agree with the penalty at the time, I can see the reason for it being given. The issue that I've got with the penalty yesterday was the initial challenge that Trent made. He didn't make contact with the player, and then Calvert-Lewin has lost his. He's got a shot off. Alisson saved the ball, and then Calvert-Lewin has lost his balance and has tried to get over the fallen player that's in front of him. Trent hasn't gone to play him, hasn't gone to play anyone. Calvert-Lewin's played Trent and then gone over, even though momentum's taken him that way, and it was a natural progression of Calvert-Lewin's movement. Forget about the word intent. Trent hasn't hit. Calvert-Lewin's hit Trent, and that's where I didn't agree with the penalty. If it had been Trent had hit Calvert-Lewin, and then Calvert-Lewin's momentum's caught Trent, and then he's gone down, then it's a penalty. But he didn't touch him, so then hit him and then fall over and give a penalty. I mean, it doesn't make no odds with regards to the result. We were never going to get it out the game. But I disagreed with the decisions.
Well, let's talk about the things that really did make a difference in the game. So the first thing was Ancelotti's formation, his layout, his tactics, as you said, Daz, were absolutely spot on. Then Klopp made a change at the beginning of the second half. What did he change? Because he tweaked the formation a bit. Did he push two of the midfielders on further up? Because we seem to be getting the ball in the middle of Everton's half for 10 minutes at the start of the second half, and turning and getting them facing their own goal. Whereas in the first half, all of our passing was in our own half or on the halfway line.
Yeah.
And you were saying about them breaking the lines. I think that's breaking the lines. But what's he done? What did he do with the formation? I couldn't figure it out.
The Shaqiri came on, didn't he? When Shaqiri came on, he had a spell for about 5-10 minutes.
He came on a little bit later, didn't he?
Yeah,
but even
when he came on, he was getting between Everton's lines a little bit, but then he goes off the game. Then he was sort of drifting too much.
I think that he was a person in whatever formation, because Klopp talked about it after the game. He talked about the fact that they tweaked the formation, and you could see that he'd done it in the way they were attacking, but I couldn't quite figure out what he'd done. Maybe it's just that he's told players to get further up the park, and he's pushing his fullbacks further up. But I mean, that's the way we were playing previously anyway. So I don't really know what the formation tweak was. Did you see what it was, Tom?
I agree with what you thought. I thought he just pushed players a little bit further on. So the two, Thiago and Curtis, were told to push, I think, another 5-10 yards forward. Wijnaldum then just swept up behind them and tried to drive us forward a bit. But it was all about, I mean, their plan caught Klopp off guard because he did his pre-match interview and he was like Calvert-Lewin and Allen playing, and they were like, no, they're on the bench, and he said, poker face Ancelotti, which was quite funny. And he was caught out because he wasn't expecting that formation. But the opportunities were still there. The problem that we had was we started the game really poorly. Kabak really struggled at times with the direct straight ball. He lost it in the air a number of times. I know it was the wind was horrendous, but the other centre halves weren't having the same issue. So it was him that was having the issue. He gave a corner away from the kickoff pretty much, and then from there, Thiago gave the ball away. We were a bit slack picking up, and Richarlison scores early. So Everton are settled. So Liverpool haven't had no time. They hadn't touched the ball by the time we'd scored the goal, and they were able then to impose their will on the game. They were able to sit back in numbers and just shut any space down, which at the moment where any kind of stifling of our forwards, our creativity is out the window. So we really struggled, and I think half time was needed to give us that little bit of boost to try and get at them. We shouldn't have needed that. We created Henderson's volley was class, very unlucky. His injury then threw the team into a bit of disarray again, and it also took a sub away for him later in the game, a more attacking sub possibly coming on. Anyway, it's just disappointing all round.
I think so. I want to get back to this formation piece because I want to understand it, and maybe someone can help us. But I don't know whether normally he plays with two in behind and one in front, and all he did was he switched that up.
Yeah, that's what he did.
So then we get more people attacking. And I think that was probably the right move. The issue I had with it was it only lasted about 10 or 15 minutes, and then they just went back to what they were doing before. And the problem we had yesterday, the biggest problem we had yesterday was our defence was obviously not that great. Phillips did great when he came on, but Kabak is obviously a desperation loan, and he's just not good enough. He's too slow. His passing's not good enough. When he's not under pressure, he looks all right, but as soon as he's under pressure, he seems to go to bits. But our forwards, again, are just not firing, just not at it at all. Mane, I couldn't count the amount of times he gave the ball away. And generally, Mane's a bit hit and miss, and at times you can get frustrated with him. But he will create things in a game because he's so unpredictable. He seems really predictable at the moment, so he's not getting as much. Bobby is just out of the game, does the odd thing that looks fantastic, and then he disappears. And Salah scores goals, puts him under pressure. But if he's not finishing well, he might as well not be playing because he doesn't do anything else for the team, and he gives the ball away too much. Yeah. So we had when you've got three players in your team that are on that kind of form, then you're already behind the curve. And by the way, they're our most influential players, or they were last year.
Yeah.
Along with our fullbacks and Van Dijk, they were the ones that were really making a difference. Once you take that out, I think that's where we struggle, because it doesn't matter what our midfield does at that stage. We know the defense isn't good enough. We need the forwards to pull us out, and they just didn't do it again. They didn't even, as you say, didn't even look like scoring.
But also they got desperate and started throwing themselves on the floor.
Oh, the Salah one was just absolutely terrible.
Yeah, it was just. I mean, Mane done it a couple of times, and so did Salah. Was terrible. They just got to pick themselves up, haven't they? I know things aren't going well for them at the moment, but they've got to pick themselves up and they've got to go again. We've got some tough fixtures coming up, and the only saving grace that we've got is the other teams around us drop points, because we're going to struggle for top four if we carry on the way we're going.
I was just saying that, Thomas. I was saying that to someone earlier, is that the top four is massive at the moment, and there's 7 clubs that we talked about on Saturday morning on our Facebook Live, that the top four is massive. I think, you're certain City going to win the league. Yeah. And I think Leicester are going to get in there, the top 4. And then you've got probably 4 or 5 clubs going for the other 2 positions. And if Liverpool aren't careful, if they don't roll the sleeves up and start digging in a bit more and start getting some form back, they'll end up 5th or 6th. And now that is financially, that's so much, considering winning the coronavirus as well. And you almost want that Champions League and that money prestige and everything that goes with it. television money to sort of tie it over. And I think that's Tottenham are the same. I think Liverpool and Tottenham financially, if they don't get into those top fours, is huge. Is already.
But let's hold on to that because
Okay.
I'm sure one of the questions that we've got from listeners later on is about that, the impact if we don't finish in the top four. So let's save that for later on. But I think that's a really important point. But Thomas has just made a good one there. We're being saved at the moment by the fact that everyone's a little bit crapper than City. So Leicester won 2-1 against Villa, Daz, which we'll talk about in a minute. Chelsea drew 1-1 with Southampton. And then you're getting things like...
It's West Ham. West Ham have beat Tottenham.
Yeah, West Ham have beat Tottenham 2-1,
and
today.
West Ham at top fourth now, West Ham.
Well, I think West Ham now look like the Tottenham. Now, you know, Tottenham were top of the league not long ago.
Yeah.
But also, now you've got to include Everton, haven't you, now? Because Everton are at the same points as us, but with a game in hand.
Yeah, I think it's against Villa as well, that game in hand.
Is it? Oh, well, there's 3 points for Everton.
All right, so listen, we'll definitely come back to the Liverpool Everton game later because I'm sure.
Good, because I've only just started with his comments kicking off down there.
Well, so you know, we're doing this new segment where we're asking for questions from listeners and watchers, and obviously we had some come in earlier in the week which were not so focused on Liverpool and Everton, and then over the last 24 hours we've had quite a few that are focused on Liverpool and Everton.
I'm not surprised.
So we'll come back to them later on. Okay, so Daz, let's talk about Leicester Villa today. So Leicester won 2-1.
Yeah, you know what you get with Leicester. I thought they passed the ball well. They've got a really good midfield. Maddison was on song today, and then he went off injured after about 60 minutes. And that really shook them a bit because they didn't have anyone to replace him. Vardy was particularly quiet, to be honest with you. But
really,
Harvey Barnes was outstanding.
Scored again, didn't he?
Yeah, and it was a good goal, good finish. Villa have gone to this almost long ball, let's just defend and see what we get at the moment. For the last couple of games I've watched them, we tried to pick up scraps off Watkins up front, and obviously Grealish wasn't playing today, Matty Cash wasn't playing today, and my mate Ross Barkley, I might as well have given him a jacket or something because he looked cold standing there. He just, so I think with Villa, you're always going to get chances against Villa because the pressure that we put ourselves under. The system, the formation, I keep going back to it at times. It doesn't help when you haven't got the players to play it. And I think, you know, that's where I would say Dean Smith needs to look at times to say, actually, we haven't got the personnel to play this system in this game. We need to change it. But Leicester looked good, looked solid at the back. We did get a goal back, but we didn't.
Say, let's put it into context, as they're fighting for top four. If Villa finish anywhere between 8th and 10th, then they've had a great season. So you've got to keep that in mind. Villa have been doing well. They've been winning games. That's a good win for Leicester away from home at Villa, but not entirely unexpected given where they stand. Totally
not expected. But what I don't like it when there's no fight in the team, and for an hour to 70 minutes there wasn't. And I just think that's the minimum that you'd expect. Leicester were very good. The two guys were Tielemans and the other guy, I can't remember his name, unsurprisingly.
Indeed.
But excellent midfield. Really good side.
Indeed
he was, yeah. Indeed he was.
Hey, Darren, how's Traore doing? I know he scored today. It was a good finish. It was brave. He smashed it in at the feet of Schmeichel coming in, who landed on top of him. But how's his overall play? Because he was your big summer signing, wasn't he?
He was, and I think he's one of these where he's adapting to the Premier League each week. I don't think the position we're playing him in means he has to work up and down quite a lot in the system that he wants him to play. He's getting better at it. We need to feed him more of the ball. I think we're expecting to do the runs that he's just not able to do at this moment in time. I'd say he's been decent. I'd like to see him having this year under his belt in the Premier League. We're not going to get relegated. So I think next year we might see a better player. But he's got a good left foot. He will score your goals. I think he's got maybe 4 or 5 goals so far this season. You know, and he's doing okay. I wouldn't say he was brilliant, but he's doing okay at the moment.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of quality. But the reality is you need the players around him to play. Have you got any comments for your friend Ross Barkley today, Dan?
Unfortunately, Ross has run 10 yards, so he's probably tired now. He's had a little sleep. Just because with Ross Barkley, I don't think he's got the intelligence in the game at times. I think he just wanders through the game. And they had a throw in today, and the player ran off him, off the throw, and he looked around, and he was 10 yards behind the player. He shot, then he got it. Madison got it and scored.
Yeah,
and it's like that's where he needs to be more intelligent of players running off him and either picking them up and going with him. He just seems to be off the pace of the whole game at times.
So obviously the reason I'm bringing him up is because our mate Billy Birch was giving you crap because Ross Barkley is an old Highfield lad and has won the Echo Cup apparently. He's one of Billy's mates.
I did speak to Billy.
As I said on the live, he hated them when he played for Everton. So
I spoke to Billy Birch in Tesco's. We had a little meeting, and it's all dealt with now.
You're on the straightener.
Socially distanced, I hope, Darren.
Of course, it was by the carrots.
Did Billy have a fag in his mouth and a bottle of it? All right. So the other game today is one that features at the top as well. We just talked about it. West Ham beating Spurs. We've watched I didn't watch the game. I watched the highlights. West Ham looked decent. Spurs had a few chances towards the end. Nice volley from Bale. But that's a great win for West Ham, isn't it?
West Ham just looks solid, just like a solid team, Declan Rice is playing really well for West Ham in a position that he's comfortable in. He's doing a lot of the groundwork to allow other players to break, and then he's got a good engine on him. And the last 10 or 15 minutes, he's almost like running the game today. And I look around and I think West Ham have just got good players. And they've fitted into a system that Moisey likes. He's done a great job there at West Ham, I think, Moisey. I think he's got players in who he knows will run hard for him, work hard for him, and they'll get a bit of Lingard going there. He's got a bit of creativity. And again, he scored.
I hate him with a passion.
He's
doing really well for me. Decent goal.
He scored a decent goal today. The first goal, I thought the keeper should have come out and he should have collected the ball.
Yeah.
His first movements were backwards onto the line, where if he'd have come out and got it, he'd have got the ball and possibly a free kick.
But haven't we talked about him in recent podcasts as well? He is liable in any game to make a mistake. And I know it's rich of Liverpool fans to be talking about that at the moment, but Lloris is liable for a mistake in a big game.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't know what that is as well. What is it?
He just won't come off his line. He won't come off his line. All the time he wants to stay on his line. And so that invites strikers to get into those areas where he should be commanding it.
Great shot stopper though, isn't he? Which is funny. Great shot stopper, but seems a little bit out of place.
I think he's good at, his job is to stop shots before we start. But generally, what he does is he generally puts the ball back into play.
Yeah.
From his saves. And you don't want that. They train all day, every day to put that ball in a relatively safe place after they've saved it, not straight back towards the feet of the striker. He should have come and caught that today. If he'd been brave, he'd have took that. He didn't need to step backwards. He'd have stood there. It would have went straight into his arms, and he would have got clattered. But he wouldn't be a goal down. But about Moisey, your mate Moisey, Darren, first name terms with him, mate.
That'll be David.
No, it's mates terms. Me and Moisey.
Yeah, Moisey. Well, he's just got a group of really honest, hard-working players. There's no one that really stands out as like a star in the team. He's got another Fellaini-type player in Souček. And they are just generally just honest, really hard-working, well-organised team. And that's why they're doing so well, especially because a lot of teams in the league, the form stuff up and down. They're just picking up results and they're just grinding these results out. I also thought that Antonio's been brilliant this year for them. He leads the line superb. And they've got a threat. And against the teams all around them, they're just doing a good job and consistently going. Whether they've got the staying power to stay there till the end, who knows? Because, one of these teams desperately needs to put a run together. These so-called bigger teams have got to put a run together to try and get in that top four. So, there's a lot to play for.
I'd love to see them get in obviously I don't want them to get in the top four because that might put us under pressure. But I'd love to see someone like a West Ham threaten the top four, and this is the year to do it because everyone is poor. The other game yesterday, Southampton drawing 1-1 away to Chelsea drawing 1-1 all away to Southampton. that's Chelsea throwing away points again. I watched the game, and Chelsea should be winning those games. Southampton have not been playing well at all.
No, exactly. And I think Southampton needed that point more than, because I think Southampton just need to stop the sort of the losers they were getting all the time. And they'd gone 7 games without a win or a point or something.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and I just think, before Christmas, Southampton were a really good side, form side. They were scoring goals. Chelsea, initially the coaches come in, change a few things, doing quite well. Be interesting to see what happens with Chelsea to now at the end of the season, whether they can sustain that or they're going to drop off.
Yeah.
Well, 2 things jumped out to me by that game. Minamino looked brilliant and scored a great goal
again.
But even his confidence on the ball, there's a thing there where he was like doing a step over and rolling the ball past the player, jinking past him. He looked great. And then the other part is Tammy Abrams got subbed on at half time and then subbed off before the end, and then got called out by Thomas Tuchel in the post-game interview.
Really? No, that wasn't Abrams, was it? Was it Adobe? Was it?
No, it wasn't. It was Abrams, wasn't it?
No, I think it was.
The winger.
Adobe.
Right.
Hudson-Odoi.
Hudson-Odoi.
Yeah, it was Hudson-Odoi.
Him as well. Yeah.
Not very good with names, Thomas, but Hudson-Odoi is very different than Tammy Abraham.
Yeah, well.
But he did, yeah.
And he called him out in the and said, I wasn't happy with his work rate, I wasn't happy with his attitude, and I wasn't happy with what I told him to do, and he didn't do it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But you know what? That's what you want. That's what you want from the big coaches, isn't it? If your players aren't doing it, you've got to call them out. Then you can start. I think part of the problem is, and we're having it at Liverpool now. Klopp's being blamed for the problems that we're having at Liverpool. The players have got to take some responsibility for it. It can't always all that. And in fact, we've heard Keane talking about it lately. We've heard Souness talking about it lately. You can't be waiting for the manager to give you your confidence. You can't be waiting for your manager to give you a kick up the arse so you get going and you get after it. Yeah. And Chelsea players shouldn't need a kick up the arse. Neither should Liverpool players either. I mean, that kind of stuff kills me.
Yeah.
So then the other game was obviously not that interesting, was Burnley. And we called this actually on the live. Burnley 0, West Brom 0. I put it on for like 10 minutes, so it's off immediately.
Yeah, I think West Brom, they're not going to get back out. Surely they're not going to get back. And Fulham actually winning the game. They've dragged Newcastle in there a little bit.
So Fulham are 18th on 22 points. West Brom are 19th on 14 points. And Sheffield United are 20th on 11 points.
But then Newcastle, I think, are only 3 points ahead of Fulham.
Newcastle have played 24 games and are on 25 points.
I know, and
they got Man United tonight. Tonight.
They need something out of that game.
So then Fulham won 1-0. I think that's a good win against Sheffield United. You could more or less call it, given what's been going on. But then we had the penalty incident at the end as well, which seems, I don't know. I think he took the ball with his left foot, but he certainly followed through with the player with his right foot. It looks like a penalty, which they didn't give.
Stonewall penalty for me. And I just don't get. I think it was Souness after the game said the referee in our league this year, they're just not good enough. Simple as. They're not good enough. They're making poor decisions. They've got all the help in the world, and they're still coming up with the wrong decisions. And that's why fans and players are getting so frustrated with them.
It was brilliant to watch afterwards. He was proper kicking off. It was brilliant.
Well, he wasn't in a good mood, was he? Let's be honest. And that's just tipped him.
It was good because what he basically said at the end, you want to get rid of this group of people who think they're the officials and get a whole load of ex-pros, train them up over a couple of years and get them in.
But that's been mentioned before, about 20 years ago. Like Rodney Marsh was saying the same thing on Soccer AM when it started off. Yeah. He was saying they should have a panel of ex-pros who should be advising these people. The problem is they don't. Everything's by the rule book, and it's not black and white. The whole game's not black and white.
That's why we love it, you know. That's why we struggle with VAR so much. But again,
I'm just glad, Simon, that VAR stopped us having these arguments because
we created different ones.
But I'm sure you said it weeks ago, Darren. As long as there's a human element of making a decision, there's going to be mistakes. But also, funnily enough, do you ever remember? I don't know whether it was Soccer AM or a special where they sent Gary Neville and Carragher to the referee school. and where they were doing the referees training, and they had a full match, and they have all simulations set up, and they set up offsides, and they're playing on a full-size indoor pitch, and they're simulating the back four, and then the forward making the run, and having midfielders playing it in at different times, and the forward just make the run naturally every time, and depending on when the ball's played, and you've got to keep up, obviously drop back with the line and then put your flag up. And I was watching Carragher, and how difficult it was looking at real speed and the difference between, the player, the one player going past. Oh, it was so hard.
Yeah, it's
tough. And the speed that they're doing, the majority of decisions that they get right, they are absolutely excellent. It's just the ones that affect your team that you hate the most.
But so here's the counter arguments, that, because I totally agree with that. It's a difficult job. We know it's a difficult job, being referee, linesman, whatever it may be. But that's their job. They're professionals. And I know there's this whole, they're not paid enough.
They're paid proper grants.
Only started happening recently, though. They've only and it's only the top referees. If you want people to have a proper career, you've got to build an infrastructure which promotes people going through the steps, getting up into the Premier League and becoming a top class referee. But if you're gonna do that and you're a professional, then you should be able to make those difficult decisions. That's your job.
Yeah,
You've got to figure that out, haven't you?
Yeah, but surely, the issues are always going to be is the speed of the ball and the players. You can't possibly get 100% of decisions right all the time. No one can.
Of course.
But what you do hope, and it's always touch and go, is that they get the big ones right. And human error is always going to be there. It has been there since we played, since soon as it is there. You're always going to get that. You're always going to have it. And what you hoped VAR would do was just give them a second chance to look at something. Yeah. And that's all you wanted it to do. And then it's still down to them. But the game's so quick now compared to 10, 20, even 30 years ago, that the linesman, the assistant referee and the referee's decision making is almost like a reaction to something now, because it's so fast. It's such a difficult. I mean, I think they get paid, Thomas. I think the Championship referees get paid 50 grand, and then the Premier League referees 75 to 100 grand a year. And they train every day, and they go around giving talks to schools, and they start.
Sorry, that's not. If you're at the top of your game, if you are a top class professional in a sport that is making as much money as football is making, that is absolutely scandalous. I mean, there is. What's the? Why would you go into refereeing if that was as far as you could get? If you had the capability to go and earn a lot more elsewhere and not get that amount of crap.
And I think that's where the issue is. I think I agree with you, Simon. I think there needs to be a better, because we're having it at grassroots now. Who wants to be a referee? No one. No one wants to be a referee. We've played the game, Simon, for 20, 30 years.
Brilliant. No one wants to be a Billy Birch.
Well, if you remember, Billy Birch has been saying that the refereeing is just the standard is crap. And he got to the top of the game, well, almost at the top. Obviously, had a bit of a problem at Man United, but he gets it. He's seen it at that level. He's interacted with all those top end referees, and he knows how difficult it is. And he's right; it's not good enough at that level.
Yeah,
but we have to attract. If you want the best, you got to attract the best.
The same as football, isn't it? Of
course it is. Of course it is.
Who was the guy? Who was the referee that he was our best referee for a while, and he went to the World Cup. I think he'd done the European Championships, and I think he'd done a World Cup final. Mark.
He's gone off to Dubai.
Yeah, well, he left. He left because he was getting paid double to go to Dubai to referee there.
I think he took one or two people with him. Jake Collins went with him over there to Dubai, because they were looking at how VAR was getting used over there along those lines.
Love it.
Yeah. So.
All right. So listen, the other game that we haven't talked about is Wolves versus Leeds. Wolves won 1-0. I think that's a decent win for Wolves, but away from home, Leeds don't look that great.
And again, Leeds huff and puff, but unfortunately they're not getting the results that the energy levels you would hope would get.
I thought you were going to say some bad joke about not blowing a house down or something. Then that's waiting for the punchline.
Don't do bad jokes, Sam, when you know that.
Well, to be honest, Sean McCuskers upset me with his stupid comments all day, so I made up Leeds got beat. Upsetting me, talking about Liverpool and Everton, looking for a reaction. Well, I'm not giving him a reaction. I was going to say I made up Leeds got beat. And Adama Traore scored an absolute whopper off the goalie. Killed it in, hit the crossbar, come down, hit the goalie on the back and went in.
Yeah. I'll be on a
Absolute
DVD
peeler.
somewhere.
Yeah. All right, so then the other games today is Arsenal are currently getting beat 1-0 by Man City at Arsenal. It'd be nice to see Arsenal snatch a late equaliser there. And then later on, Man United are playing Newcastle at United. I think that might be a decent game, actually.
Yeah, I think United will win it. I think Newcastle are struggling. They've got struggling to score goals, to be creative. And I think they're going to get dragged into relegation. I really do.
I think
United?
No, Newcastle. Yeah. You love that, yeah.
I think if Newcastle lose there today, it's looking precarious for them. Like they're getting close to that, dropping into the bottom three.
Oh, I think that they're in a relegation fight. I think.
Definitely.
And Fulham are at form, haven't they?
Yeah.
They're competitive. They're not getting bullied out of games as they were earlier in the season. They're there or thereabouts each game now going forward. So he's done a good job, Scott Parker.
They've bought a guy in January, a big guy plays up front. His name escapes me. Something like
Maka.
Maka, that's him. Maka up front, lovely fella. But he's holding the ball up well, and he's allowing Lookman to play off him. And Lookman again, he's on fire at the moment, playing really well.
He's a decent player, and if you can get him playing, he'll score goals for you, won't he?
I just think he was a bit young and immature when he went to Everton. I think it was a massive, transfer for him, and I don't think it really worked out.
And it didn't work out for him in Germany either, did it?
No.
So he went to Leipzig, and that didn't work out. He starts down on fire there as well. But good on them, Fulham. They play good football. They're slowly but surely getting more competitive each week. Good luck to them. If Mike Ashley isn't going to put money into Newcastle, they don't deserve to stay in the league. Yeah, that's the way it is.
All right, and then the other game Monday is Brighton Crystal Palace. That's a Crystal Palace getting dragged in it if Brighton beat them.
Yeah, definitely.
That's another one where Crystal Palace are looking in a difficult spot as well. They're 14th, played 24 games on 29 points. I still think they've got enough to get out of it, but if they lose a couple of games now, next couple of games, they're struggling.
And it's not as if they could change too many things either in their team. No. They'll always play that way.
So the only thing they've got going for them is Burnley are below them and are not playing well at all at the moment. Brighton keep kind of false starting. Newcastle are not looking good. Fulham are hitting a bit of form. West Brom and Sheffield United are not getting out of that.
They're done.
They're done. So it's 1 out of maybe 5. So maybe Crystal Palace could stay out of it because they've got 29 points.
I think you probably only need another win or two for Palace. I think they'll be safe.
Yeah.
The problem with Palace, or the problem Palace have got is they set a record for losing all the games when we come back after lockdown. They lost every single game. And they started quite well at the start of the season. They've gone on a bad run and they're literally just getting beat most weeks. They're not putting in decent performances, and Roy Hodgson's calling them out. You know what? I don't like Palace. I would put it down.
Yeah. We've had some bad experiences against Palace. But again, one of the questions is about what's happened after lockdown and how it's impacted teams as well. So that's another thing we'll get out in the questions. And then you've got Leeds playing Southampton on Tuesday.
Minamino hat-trick. Just to make Sean McCusker happy.
That could be a decent game though, couldn't it? Southampton are away. Leeds are home. Leeds will go right after Southampton. I think that could be a decent game.
Phillips hasn't been there for Leeds. I think that's a massive issue.
Yeah.
So I think if he gets back playing in the next game or two, I think they'll be all right.
Brilliant. Have you seen much of Leeds? Because Liverpool have been heavily linked with that Rafinha, or is it Rafinha plays?
He looks decent, but I mean, maybe they're looking at him as a replacement for Bobby.
I don't think he plays in that sort of. He doesn't,
but he's got loads of ability, hasn't he?
Yeah. No, he has. I think he likes the space out wide to run at players.
Yeah,
I think
maybe
in
Jota
the middle
is that replacement.
Yeah, I think Jota might be. I like Jota.
Yeah, and he's been back training out training. So I'm hoping that he goes back into full team training this week and he's available for our next game. That would be great if we could.
And then you've Verge and Gomez have been back in the gym as well, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look. I mean, it looks like Virgil is closer than Gomez, but I think he's just putting all his efforts to try and be able to play in the Euros.
Yeah.
If he comes back before the end of the season, it will just be to try and get his fitness up to try and make the Holland squad.
Yeah, just on those injuries, I know there's talk of Jack Grealish on Twitter being out for 10 weeks.
Oh.
That's the talk.
That's
don't know
not
whether.
good, mate.
No,
What's
it's
he
not.
done?
Fractured. Something about his shin or something. A little small
Ooh.
fracture.
He
But
messed
you
his
don't.
head up.
Yeah. The gel ran out in his head. But I do
Died.
think. I mean, you talk about players who have an impact for the
Oh,
team.
God, yeah.
He has a massive impact for us, whether you like him or not. He's a major
Definitely.
part of what we do.
Yeah.
I'm just glad we've got enough points
Yeah.
to still to be okay in the Premier League, because I think it's going to be difficult.
How many
Yeah.
points have you got, Darren?
We've got 36, I think, Thomas, which I
Oh,
think
sound. You're pretty
it's
much
going to be,
safe now, aren't you?
it's going to be fine.
Yeah. I think if he plays for the rest of the season, Villa are top 10.
Yeah, no, I do, and I think
If he doesn't,
You're getting dragged down towards the bottom.
You're talking about somewhere around the 12th, 13th.
I think so, but I think 10 to 12 would be okay still. I think it's a success,
especially if you lose him for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the next segment. So we've asked people who watch and listen to send in some questions. We got some brilliant questions last week, which we tried our best to answer. And then we've got a load in this week. So we'll spend a bit more time doing it this week. They're also a bit more thought-provoking. There's also a couple of jabs in there because of what's gone on with Liverpool. But we will definitely get through as many as we can. There's some crackers in here, some for you, Daz, some for all of us. And we will start off with Danny Hanlon, who's got a question for us while he's sat in his car. So let's go and see what he's got to say.
Hello, lads. Quick question. Do you think some clubs have benefited from not having fans in the stadium? If so, what can the fans do to keep that positivity in the stadium when they go back?
Okay, so his question is, what's the difference? Who's benefited from the fact that, and we've talked about this before actually, who's benefited from the fact that there's no fans in? And I'm guessing what he means is the lack of pressure. So there's two sides of this, isn't there? There's when you're playing at home, the lack of support when it's your own team and you're getting backed by your supporters, but also then the pressure when you're not on top and you're not scoring and you're not finishing chances, or when you're away from home, the pressure from the other teams. Who do you think's benefited from that?
I've got two.
Go on.
So soon to be champions, Man City, they are used to playing in an empty stadium. We play in an empty stadium on a regular basis. So
Cy Watson's going to love that.
No, but they do. I mean, just look with the season when they won the league, the last time they won the league, a lot of the games, massive parts of the stands empty. Their average attendance is really low compared to the other top teams in the league. They're not a hugely well-supported team, like locally or, internationally, like the big teams, Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea to an extent. And so they made no difference to them. So, and then the other one is yesterday's winners, Everton. Everton have benefited in performances because the Everton crowd turn very quickly, and I think they caused the Everton team at times a lot of nerves, and there's a lot of spite in the Everton crowd at times towards their own players and certain individuals like Tom Davies, who's been flourishing these last few weeks. If the home crowd was in, he probably wouldn't have got that benefit to go out there and express himself and play well. He was excellent yesterday. If the home crowd were in for them games leading up to yesterday, would he have played as well over the period of time? So they jumped out to me straight away to think they're two teams that have benefited from the crowd not being in.
Do you think the answer is more about players benefiting as opposed to teams benefiting? Because there's so many players in and around the squad. Some people respond to the crowd really well, whether that be good or bad, as in positive or negative feedback from the crowd. And some players just don't respond well. Tom Davies is a great example. He will flourish because he doesn't feel the pressure. And obviously he's making Everton play better. But I think it's more about individuals, isn't it?
No, well, I think Everton as a collective, the crowd turn very quickly. You only have to look at social media and you see when you're watching the crowd, the commentators pick up on the fact that the home crowd at Everton will often turn if things aren't going the way, and their expectations sometimes they are this year, but they haven't matched the players haven't matched the crowd's expectations, and they do turn on them. City, on the other hand, they're not bothered. They're used to playing in an half-empty stadium with no atmosphere, so they're useless. They give them blue plastic flags. I think, the other side of things is more. If you reverse the question, then a lot more teams are affected with no crowd. Liverpool, prime example, they play on the passion and the will to win and the want to win from their crowd. They feed on that, and it helps them. It doesn't hinder Liverpool. And there's other teams as well. Man United, for a certain, they are helped with the crowd. Such a huge crowd, it helps them. People are going to Old Trafford and they're winning on a regular basis over the last couple of years since COVID. Yeah. So I think it's more teams are affected by the no crowd rather than it helping them.
What are you thinking, Daz?
I think some players like to play with that's almost like that noise in the stadium, and some players there'll be noise but they won't hear anything. They'll just almost, it's this is what we do and this is how we play. Some players it'll affect massively because a mistake they can hear the boos and their heads go down and stuff like that. I think Tom's firing two lovely shots there to Everton and Man City fans.
No, I believe that's. I'm not saying that because of disliking it like that. I genuinely believe, and
people might disagree with you.
Yeah, but I believe that's the case.
I wouldn't go that far. I get what you're saying about some the Everton fans, but I also think some Everton fans have backed people like Tom Davis over the last couple of weeks, couple of months. But I do think it comes down to the individual. I think it comes down to how they like to play. Some people love pressure. Some people love playing in pressure. If you go to Anfield or Old Trafford, Goodison, and you get that pressure, some people love it and they want to turn it on. Other players are actually flourishing by no one there.
Yeah.
He was asking about teams though, and it's easy to pick up and say, oh, some players are like it, some players won't.
But that's what makes the team. The teams, if you're at home, you have the advantage if you play at home because of the crowd. Every club does, whether you like it or not. And the away side, if you go to Anfield, you're going to, as a team, you've got to shut the crowd up. That's what you've got to do. And I think, we can say it has had an impact. It has had an effect, without a doubt. And they're talking, hopefully things might open up in March, April a bit more, and fans will go back to like before Christmas. We had some fans going back to the stadiums.
Yeah, something like
that. But I do think it always, as a home ground, you're always going to have an advantage because of the crowd. And it's whether the away team can shut that crowd up or not.
All right. So just very quickly, is the continuation of his question was how do fans continue that for the teams that are benefiting from it? I'd argue that what that should encourage you to do is back your team a bit more and be a bit more positive and not get on their back when they go down. Because actually the teams that are flourishing, it's clear that if they're given support or not given the negativity, they seem to do well.
I'd agree with that.
You know what? Another one just popped in my head as well. West Ham.
Yeah,
they're notoriously hard on the team, aren't they? The fans.
Yeah.
And the flourishing. Look at them, fourth place.
Great. Because I bet in the season they wouldn't have wanted Moisey at West Ham.
No, it's the new Messiah.
Yeah, and Darren's mate, Moisey.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question. Thanks for that question, Danny. Really appreciate it. Next question comes from our mate Sean McCusker. So let's go and see what his question is.
How are the boys? Just myself and Patrick here. What I want to ask is name me the last 7 English managers to win the top flight of English football. So that's Premier League / First Division. How are the boys?
Brilliant. I love that. Patrick getting in on the action there.
He's one for the over 45s.
Yeah, he'll be getting the game soon.
We'll still be playing.
So this is a good question, and I think he means 7 different managers. I think we originally took this as 7 times the top flight has been won by an English manager. And Thomas, you've got something to fire off for us, haven't you?
Yeah. So Howard Wilkinson was the last English manager to win it, and that was with Leeds. He won the Premiership, didn't he? Or was it the last?
It was the Premier League. It was
Was
one
it?
of the
Yeah.
first Premier Leagues, I think.
Yeah. Then before him was Howard Kendall. He won 2. Then Joe Fagan. Bob Paisley won 2. And in between that was Ron Saunders for Villa. Didn't even know who he was, Darren.
So that's 5.
Then Bob Paisley won it again.
Yeah.
Twice. Then Brian Clough.
Yeah. 6.
In between Bob Paisley winning it twice again.
So I'm missing the 7th.
I'm going to throw one out for you.
Go on.
Bill Nicholson from Tottenham. I don't know if he was English.
Sounds
in
Scottish, that, mate.
1960 something. I don't know if he was or not. So
that definitely sounds Scottish.
It does.
I may be wrong, but it sounds Scottish.
Well, I think Tottenham did the double in 1965-ish.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure on him.
I can't think of any others. The obvious ones are Kendall and Paisley, aren't they?
Right, I'll tell you now. Howard Wilkinson, Howard Kendall, Joe Fagan, Bob Paisley, Ron Saunders, Bob Paisley, Brian Clough, Bob Paisley, Don Revie, Leeds.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Don Revie.
That's why he's asked the question.
Yeah, great question.
Don Revie, and then Brian Clough before him, and then Bertie Mee was at Arsenal. Bertie Mee won it with Arsenal, 70-71, and Harry Catterick, 69-70 for Everton. And then
Brilliant.
Joe Mercer was another one. All English managers, but nothing for the last 20 odd years, 30 years, is there? No English managers.
Howard Wilkinson's the last one, isn't he?
Yeah, that was 92, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one, isn't it? What English managers? How many have we got in the top flight at the moment? Scott Parker,
Dean Smith,
the Gruffalo, Burnley's manager.
Yeah.
Sam
Allardyce. Gruffalo.
Do we have to count Sam Allardyce? Can we not say he's Scottish?
Where's Moyes? Is Moyes Scottish?
Scottish.
Who else were we missing? Oh,
Brighton's manager?
Yeah.
Potter.
Yeah.
Harry.
Has he got my joke book? Have I sent it to you by mistake?
He's full of them today. All right, let's go to the next question. So the next question is from Dan Watson. And Dan deliberately waited until Liverpool had been beaten by Everton to put in his question. So let's painfully go and listen to what Dan had to say.
Hi, guys. Sorry, 1 second.
From the penalty spot.
Oh, sorry about that. So my question to you guys is, who would you consider to be the best player ever to play for your clubs? And to make it a bit more difficult, Liverpool fans, you can't say Gerrard. And Darren, you can't say... trying to think of a good Villa player. Marlon Harewood.
He's done me like a kipper.
How good was that? Marlon Harewood. That's the only one he can come up with.
Oh, he's getting ripped in the wall. Hate for the next couple of weeks.
So firstly,
what's his name?
Dan Watson.
He looks like he just got out of jail.
Yeah, he might have. He's an Arsenal fan, obviously, but that is absolute genius. The fact that he stitched us both up. I love the production value. The fact that at the start he's got the sound going in the background. That is genius. He did well there.
That's great. He's done well there, to be fair.
Yeah. All right, Dan. We'll let you go first on this one.
Well, obviously it was going to be Marlon Harewood, but I have to think on the spot now who I could possibly go for. One of my all-time heroes playing for Villa was Paul McGrath.
Yeah.
He was, when he came to us, he was almost written off at Man United because of his. I don't think this is a secret. He was an alcoholic, alcohol abuse and stuff, and he was gambling and all those things. He was in a little club with him and a couple of other United players. Ron Atkinson brought him to Villa, and basically, by all accounts, is that Monday to Friday, he wouldn't do much training. He'd just go on the exercise bike, do a little bit, and he'd get man of the match every Saturday. It was just, to watch him defend is to watch an artist paint. He is that good, really high quality player. Read the game beautifully. He was quick. And I loved him. I thought he was excellent at Villa.
He was brilliant, but no surprise that you're picking someone from the Defenders Union.
Defenders win Premier Leagues. Attackers win games.
Don't we know?
Yeah, great player. I loved him when he was at Villa. Thomas, you go next.
Mine was dead easy. Best player I've ever seen, Luis Suarez. You either loved him or hated him. But I'm telling you now, I don't think I've ever seen anyone as skillful as his will to win, his desire. He'd do anything. He'd bite your face off to win. And I loved that in a player. He was that good, he could nutmeg a mermaid.
Classic. Okay.
I'm not sure who your script writer is this week, Thomas, but we need to have a really good long chat.
Tell you what, have you been talking to him too much, Stas? Because he's coming up with all the crackers today. So for me, it was also really easy. I think, so we obviously can't use Gerrard. He was obviously in the mix. But for me, it's Kenny Dalglish. He was unbelievable. And when I was in my formative years, he was the best player I'd ever seen. He was amazing on the ball. Couldn't get the ball off him. Used to stick his arse in and, keep players away. What he could do with the ball, how he turned was amazing. He scored some amazing goals. I always remember the one against Chelsea, which was a fantastic goal. Helped us win the old First Division. What a player. Unbelievable.
He was, I grew up and on Dalglish with my brother and my dad. He saw the game differently. Dalglish, the vision he had was absolutely unbelievable. And that's what made him the player he was for me. The vision he could just pick rush out all day.
But think about what he did as well. He replaced Keegan, who at that stage was an absolute icon and was amazing for Liverpool. Left when no one expected him to. Kenny Dalglish comes in and looks unbelievable.
It was no Marlon Airwood, I'll give you that.
Nowhere close. That is an absolute classic.
Can we throw a question back to Dan then? Who's his Arsenal one?
Yeah, okay.
And he can't use that fraud who I hate.
Lee Dixon.
Thierry Henry. He can't use Thierry Henry. And also, you've just got beat.
Yeah, so Arsenal have just been beat by City, so it's good timing that we've just showed Dan's question. That's a really good question. It's hard when you take out the person because you would naturally go for Gerrard in our lifetime. But I do think if I was picking players that really made a difference growing up, Kenny Dalglish would be top of my list.
Well, I didn't really see him play that much. I wasn't watching football. I was only 8 when around the time when he was just becoming player manager. But I watched, and if you haven't seen it, it's amazing. Sky have got a documentary about Dalglish where Platini is on it, and Platini got World Football of the Year or something, or European Football of the Year that year, and he said, I was nowhere near as good as Dalglish. He was well better than me. And for Platini to come on the documentary and talk about Dalglish like that, he must have been some player.
So let's go to the next question. Next question is from Matthew Bashu, and let's see what he's got to ask us.
Hi guys, so I have 2 questions for you today. First question, what's your takes on Tottenham dependence with Harry Kane? And as a second question, following your debate you got some days ago about the greatest manager in Premier League, where Darren was considering Mourinho as the greatest manager, how come Mourinho can be viewed as the greatest manager, having so poor tactical skills and no backup plan when Harry Kane is injured? Taking in consideration that this season there is a lot of game in a short period of time, so higher possibility of having player being injured. And so, how come Mourinho can be viewed as the greatest manager, making his whole tactics on one team players and creating a dependence for his team? Thank you. Looking forward for your answer.
How good was that? He's got a background and everything. We've got to get him in to do our production.
Is that his garden? He's done well there.
So he's Matthew's someone who I work with, a mate of ours, been listening since the start of the podcast, constantly giving us feedback, loves his football. He's got a good opinion on football as well because he's played it for years, meant to be a decent player as well. I'm desperate to get over to Bangkok and we're going to stop it. We're going to have a game of football. We're not going out. We're staying in a hotel.
So if Thomas would go with you to be your minder.
You're not coming. You'd get us into too much trouble. Not a chance. He lives there. Imagine that. But he does live there with his family, so. All right, so I think it's a decent question because we've talked about this before. And if you remember, Daz, we talked about Tottenham a couple of weeks ago and then Jamie Carragher stole what we were talking about and got it on Sky. So basically, he believes that Tottenham and Mourinho particularly rely on Kane. And when Kane isn't playing, Tottenham don't look like the same team. And his tactics are built around playing Kane as the main player in the team. He hasn't got a central midfielder that he's building the team around. It's all about one centre forward. I'd argue that it's a little bit broader than that. And I think it's Kane and Son together that he's building it around. But when Kane is not in the team, Son is not as effective because he's not getting the supply. So what are your thoughts on the tactical awareness and what he should be doing?
Are you going, Darren?
I think, okay, I think at the moment, Tottenham have got too many average players to play the way Mourinho wants to play. I think his two centre-halves aren't good enough to sustain how much defensive...
Your boots, Darren.
Well, I'm glad you said that. But haven't got the... Tottenham are always going to be a counter-attacking side on Mourinho because that's how he's built his career, certainly over the last couple of years. And having Son and Kane, when they're on song, they're absolutely brilliant to watch. The problem is that when Kane's out the team, they've got no one who can hold that ball up the same way he can. Therefore, you can't push out. The defence isn't good enough to sustain that much pressure without them getting a goal or two against them. And that's the problem. I think that the games are coming thick and fast and Mourinho hasn't got them on the training ground enough to have real impact for these average players. And I think that's where Tottenham problems are. I think if Kane's out, the goals dry up. When he's in, the defence isn't good enough to sustain the pressure that they're under to concede goals, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, what are you thinking, Thomas?
Good answer for a change, Darren.
I don't know what's up with you this week, but you're in the right mood.
Tactically aware there, Daz. I like that.
I agree with some of your points. You're right. They've got a number of average players that can't fill the role when Kane's missing. So we talked about this a couple of weeks ago with regards to Son is a fantastic player when he's playing on the inside of your fullback coming in off the wing. And Tottenham are really good when they sit deep, compress the midfield and then hit on the break, hit Kane, he spins and plays Son in or vice versa. So they're really good in that sense. But when he's missing, Son, like we talked about, isn't strong enough through the midfield. He's not very good with his back to goal. So he likes to run onto the ball, whereas if it's played into his feet and then he has to knock it into midfield, he's not as effective and certainly not as strong as Kane. Tactically, I don't know how we can really compare Mourinho to say, I don't think he's a one-trick pony, but with the teams that he's got, when he was at United, he had a certain way of playing and he built the team around a certain focal point in the team and then he built all around that. Same with this team. He's done it with, his teams. It was Drogba for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Everton went through Drogba and they built off all the bits and the havoc that Drogba caused. I just think he hasn't got good enough players. You're right, you hit the nail on the head. If he had better players or he had more money to spend in the transfer market, he'd do well. But he hasn't. So
yeah, let's have a look at some of the because I think their problem is they don't have anyone to pick up the Kane role if Kane's not in there, and also.
But would you though? The issue you've got is it's like any top side in world football. He's their best player by a country mile. If anyone loses the best player, it's very difficult to replace that player and then carry on, isn't it?
I agree, but the point I was going to make was then your midfield comes much more into play when you lose your centre forward, and you're saying that he maybe not have the money to go and buy someone and really change the team. But let's have a look at some of the players they've got, because when you look at their midfield players, they've got a good mix of players. I don't think anyone really stands out. They've got Højbjerg, they've got Winks, they've got Lamella, Dyer, who's down as a midfielder, who's not. Sissoko,
I'll give you that.
Sissoko, Lo Celso, Dele Alli, who's not getting in the team, at times not even in the squad, Ndombele, and then a couple of kids. But they've got a decent mix of players there. They're just none of them are world class. They're all right.
Yeah, and
Is
I
that
don't
not
think
the problem?
no, I think Tottenham as well over the years. I've spent a lot of money on average players,
Well,
and
they
I
brought
think
Vinicius, didn't
and,
he, to be the replacement for Kane?
yeah, and I think that sums it up. You've just named there 6 or 7 midfield players. You're thinking, really, would they get in any other top 3 or 4 team?
Yeah,
And
no.
you'd argue not. I think they're all quite similar in the players. You look and think, where's the creative player there? Where's the one who's going to go past the player? A lot of those players there, like Winks, gets the ball sideways all the time.
Yeah.
Højbjerg got from Southampton. He's just there to stop the play. And they're not really, you would say, creative players or players who can go past players. The only one is Lamella, but he's very hit and miss. He's not consistent enough at the higher level.
You're totally right.
Yeah, they brought Baines in. Sorry, not Baines. They brought Gareth Bale in. And Bale, you thought, okay, that might get either side of Kane, him and Son, but he's not playing for another reason.
But is he not playing? He doesn't play that formation either, does he?
No.
So,
No.
but look at their forwards, right? They've got Son, they've got Bale, Kane, Bergwijn, Moura, Lucas Moura, who actually does a decent job for them. Vinicius, who I think was the direct replacement for Kane when he's not there, and he's just nowhere near close. And then Dane Scarlett, who's one of the kids that they've got. But they've got some decent forwards, but there isn't I think that it's like Liverpool. If we've got the 3 forwards, and then if those 3 forwards aren't playing, we just try and push 3 other players into those 3 forward roles. Yeah. We don't have the backup plan to go to up top. He's done it a couple of times, but he doesn't do it regular. I think Tottenham have got a similar problem. If they could go to a 3, actually that might work well for them.
I think he's almost got too many forwards to play the system he wants to play.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't work.
So his point is, we're talking about Mourinho as being tactically one of the greatest managers in the Premier League. But the reality is we're not talking about now. We're talking about what he did years ago and what he brought to the league and also his personality at that point. He's a very different manager now. I think he's much more consistent in his approach, but his approach is to be defensive.
He's gone very safe in his play, and he almost sets his team up to, they've got a point, and if they can snatch something, great.
But do you not think that is a product of the pressure of the Premier League? So he's felt the pressure massively at places like United and Chelsea, and that makes him much more defensive because he's worried about making himself look bad.
No, I think that he just hasn't changed with the times. So he stuck to his tried and tested. When he had that all-conquering Chelsea team, he was still very defensive. They had John Terry.
Yeah, no, you're right.
They were very defensive, and their game plan was, we get it up to Drogba, we play off Drogba. Frank Lampard was coming onto a lot of balls, scored a lot of goals coming from arriving late in the box. And he played the same way. He just hasn't adapted. The problem that he's got is, where he's gone from then, he hasn't had good enough players. So he went to Real Madrid and he had Ronaldo, so he did well. But he didn't have good enough players at United. They bought him Di Maria. They spent tons of money for him, and they just didn't buy the right players. And they just couldn't. They couldn't. What's the word? They couldn't capture the form or the player to play the way he wants to play. And I think the same. Harry Kane is very good. They haven't got the quality to play off Harry Kane. Yeah. And unfortunately for Mourinho, he hasn't got Dele Alli firing. If Dele Alli was playing well, Tottenham would doing a lot better because he has got the creativity. He's just had he was very good the other night when I watched him in Europe, Dele Alli. But I just don't know what's going on with him because he's quality. And the only other one that I really rate at Tottenham at the moment is Højbjerg. I think he's excellent as a defensive midfielder. He's quality. So he's got a couple of players that do the job and fit into his system really well. Is he able to adapt out of playing a different formation or a different style of play with the quality that he's got? And I don't think he can.
Yeah.
The question is going to be in the summer, and we spoke about earlier about, will Tottenham invest in Mourinho and his plans? Will they get shut? Will Kane stay? Because if Kane wants to win trophies and wants to win Premier Leagues or wants to win something in his career, will he move? And if so, where to?
I think it depends as well, doesn't it? Because it's like the Gerrard situation, isn't it? Kane loves Tottenham, growing up at Tottenham, it's all about the club. and he's going to be put under a massive amount of pressure to stay at the club, especially by people like Mourinho, and Mourinho will definitely play the game with him to try and keep him at the club. And I think if Mourinho goes, then Kane will go. If Mourinho stays, then I think Kane stays, certainly another season.
I think the difference between the Gerrard and the Kane one is that Gerrard was still winning things. He won Champions League, he won FA Cups, he won League Cups. They were still successful. Tottenham haven't been successful. He's not won anything for so many years. That's the difference. And I think there has to be a point in his career where he says, okay, this is it now. If we don't win nothing this season with the personnel, the manager, whoever, the investment that's gone in the club, I need to go.
Yeah.
The problem you've got is who's got that kind of money?
Yeah, now.
Who's got the kind of money? You're only looking at the likes of PSG. I mean, PSG might be a decent move because Pochettino's there.
Yeah.
And to bring him in, Man City have got that type of cash. But I don't think anyone's apart from the mega rich clubs have got the money to be buying that quality of player.
And then the question is, can they, because of financial fair play?
Yeah. I mean, I think Marlon Harewood's still available. I don't know.
Dan Watson signing him at Everton. Sorry, at Arsenal. Okay, all right. So let's go to the last question for today. And this comes from our good friend, Phil McGuinness, who's been on the podcast. He loves a camera, so I'm sure this wasn't that much of a chore for him. So let's see what he's got to say.
Hello, gents. How are we? Got a few quick questions today for the pod. Before we start, check out my little dodgy little tash that I'm growing. I've got a new role coming up, an exciting role. I'm playing a plumber, and basically I turn up at someone's house when they have a leak, like straight away. Apparently the theme is it sets unrealistic expectations about how quickly someone can turn up at your house when you have a leak or something. Told me to bring my toolbox, which I thought was a bit odd. Anyway, quick question for Simon and Thomas. Obviously Liverpool won the league last year, and this year's been very challenging. What do you think are Liverpool's realistic expectations for this year, next year and the year after? Do you think that if Liverpool don't win the league or the Champions League, that's a massive disappointment for Liverpool? And if they don't, what impact does that have on the fans' relationship with Klopp? We've obviously seen it happening with Leicester, which were an anomaly, but you've had Manchester United, you've had Chelsea, everyone have this sort of cycle effect. And obviously Liverpool did phenomenally the last few years, and Klopp's done amazing. But what impact do you think that's going to have? Secondly, I've got a question for Daz. We all know that Daz has got a famous saying, and when you play football, you have probably heard it. I've heard it many times. And that is, nobody does the doggies. And he says it so much that we got a special bib made for him when he plays with us on a Thursday night. My question is, Daz, has anyone ever caught you doing the doggies? Somebody might be listening and they'll say, yeah, I saw Daz doing the doggies in a game once. And Daz, can you explain for anyone who doesn't know what it is and why it's important not to do it in a game? And lastly, where did I put it? Oh, here we go. Tom, mate, you're not going to believe it. I've got you a pen, a multicoloured pen. It's got loads of different colours on, so you can draw all your lines on your Saturday morning lives. There you go, mate. Give it to Daz, send it to you. All right, gents. Love the pod, as always.
Absolutely brilliant. Again, production value is excellent, isn't it? Phil is a superstar.
Who's the script writer?
Oh, genius.
Phil with his dirty porno tash.
Oh, just brilliant. His story at the start is brilliant. He's going to go and turn up at someone's house and service their pipes. Come on.
It looks like he's got 3 eyebrows.
It's a dodgy look, isn't it?
That's brilliant.
So there's a couple of things to unpack there, Daz. So firstly, the pen at the end. So this was because on our Saturday live, we had an argument about whether the goal against Liverpool was offside or not. Whether Bobby Firmino's foot was pointing that way or pointing that way. And we were trying to draw lines on the screen and it didn't work. So Phil's said to Thomas that what he should do is get one of these pens so he can draw his lines, because Thomas was pretty passionate about the fact that it was drawn through the middle of his sleeve as opposed to the end. So there's your pen. We'll do that in future. And then the other thing that we have to start with, Daz, is his nobody does the doggies. Come on, you've got to explain this.
So we played Thursday night football with Phil and a couple of lads up in Kirby, and lads just seem to like a dog when you throw a dog a stick or the ball to someone, you throw it back to you, and you just end up doing this across the pitch. You don't have any impact. And I kept saying, stop doing the doggies. You're not running left and right. You're not a dog. Stop running. And he's like, what do you mean a doggy? He said, well, if you run there, they're just going to pass it back to you and pass it back to you. Close the gap here and force you to bring your other players up. So you're not just doing the doggies. You'll be knackered in 10 minutes. I've never done the doggies. I want people to know because I've never had to run like that because my brain helps me so much during the game.
Brilliant.
So I don't have to run.
Absolute genius. So nobody does the doggies.
So no one does the doggies.
Oh, genius. I love that.
And actually,
is this one of the 5 fundamentals, Dad?
That's the 6th.
I love at the start of your rant then was a little bit of a pregnant pause. I appreciated that.
Thanks, mate. I wear that bib when we're playing as well. That's so true. You got me, mate. You got me that for my 40th.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
I love the end of it though. Has anyone ever caught you doing the doggies?
And that's what I was just thinking. What's Phil talking about doggy style for?
That's something very different, Tom. Very different.
Listen,
now you explained it.
There'll be a strongly worded text to Phil after this podcast. Don't
genius.
you? Yeah, he's filming this week, so I'm going to phone him. And
that's probably what his tash is for. I'd worry about what he's filming, Dad. All right. So his question for me and Thomas was, where do we think Liverpool are going to finish this year, next year, year after? What do we think they're going to do? And what's the impact on the team? So I'll kick this one off. I think this year we're top 4. I think we'll get top 4, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think we're going to have to fight for it. We're going to have to go on a bit of a run. If we do go on a bit of a run, we might threaten 3rd, but top 4 is where we're at this year. And I actually think right now we're not playing like a top 4 team. So he needs to step it up for us to get there. I don't think the impact will be massive for next year if we finish in the top 4. If we don't finish in the top 4, I think that is a massive impact on the club financially. From a confidence perspective, I think it'd be knocked in a big way. But I also think that there's a chance that we could go on a decent run in the Champions League as well. And if we can push on in the Champions League, who knows, we might even win it. You know, in 2005, when we were not playing great in the league, we went on and won the Champions League. Who knows? We might be able to win something. And then next, I think he needs to rebuild again in the summer. He needs backing. I don't think he's going to get a massive amount of money, but he certainly needs better backing than he got in the January transfer window. If he does, then he needs to bring in a couple of what I think need to be world-class players. I know we don't buy stars, but he needs to be able to bring in players that have the ability to step up and be first-team players. We can't be getting people like Kabak into the team. And I know that was a desperation loan, but that's not Liverpool standard. That's taking us back to where we were years ago. Certainly not something that I thought Klopp would be doing. But again, I just don't think he was backed. I think if he's backed, we're in a better position for next year. And then hopefully, as Thomas says, we're challenging again next year. But I think what happens this year plays a big part in what happens next year.
I think the other part of your question was about fans' perception of Klopp. I touched on it earlier on in the podcast. I'd sell every single player we've got and buy a new team before we got rid of Klopp. I think he's the reason why we've had the success we've had over the last few years. And he built it from a poor start. We got to a European final that year. We got top 4 the year after. Then we started to build again. We got to Champions League final. We won the Champions League. All that's come from Klopp. And signing good players, improving the players that we had, and then signing unknown players and working with them in the reserves and then putting them in and then becoming big stars. I think I'd be speaking for many Liverpool fans that would say the same. You know, Klopp's the one, and then the players are second. And I think next year, obviously, we're going to do the double, and the year after that, I'm going to say I'll just be happy with the league.
So what do you think about this year, Tom? Where do you think we're likely to finish?
I think we are touch and go for 4th. I don't even think we've got a chance at 3rd. Touch and go at 4th. And I only think that as if Jota comes back into the side in the coming weeks and is able to have an impact. If he doesn't have any kind of impact, I think we're done. I think we're going to be 5th or 6th at best. I'm hoping for 4th. Like you said, finishing in the top 4 has got huge implications on how we progress as a team, as a squad, and what happens in the near future for Liverpool. It doesn't matter whether we win it, because we can't win it now anyway. It didn't matter if we won it this year, because we haven't got the financial capabilities to build for next year if we're not in the top 4, and that's the massive point now.
So the other thing is that one of the things that really disappointed me in the derby was they brought on Calvert-Lewin, who it was great when he come on, did really well. Obviously created the situation for the penalty. We brought on Divock Origi.
Legend.
Enough said. Legend, scored some great goals. I've seen better players in the Vets. I've seen better players on a Saturday afternoon we play in the Vets League. I'd have Bish before him.
Yeah, so would I, because he's not old enough to play in our team.
All right.
I don't see what Origi brings if you're going to play the same way.
Yeah, I mean, if you go 2 up top, then it's different. But if you're playing with the 3, I don't know. That's any thoughts on where you think Liverpool will finish?
I think a 4th or 5th. And you know, it's the reality is, you look and you're thinking City will win it. Leicester are probably going to finish 2nd. You wouldn't argue against United 3rd at the moment. They seem to be scraping results and getting the results they need. And then it's Chelsea, Liverpool, West Ham are doing so well, you know, and West Ham are the ones that will push some of them out.
Yeah, and I mean, in the past we could have relied on beating teams like Chelsea, because we were even when we weren't doing well against the teams lower down the league, we were always doing well against the top 6. This year, I don't think you can, because if we don't get that right, if we don't change something fundamentally in how we go after the game, then things aren't going to change, and we're going to struggle to get the wins on the board. Anyway, okay, so that's the end of the questions from the audience section. I thought that was brilliant. Really enjoyed that. Great questions. Thanks everyone for doing the videos. We've got some people, everyone who's put a video in there have been listening to the podcast since probably almost day one. Big supporters of the podcast, involved in the Facebook group, get involved on Twitter. And now they're sending videos in. It's brilliant. I'm sure we'll get more from them as well. I'd be surprised if Cy Watson and Alan Yates don't put in a question at some stage this week, given the fact that Liverpool have just been beat by Everton and City have beat Arsenal away.
Yeah, and Thomas has fired two guns at
2 shots. Yeah,
2 shots. I think Cy Watson will probably have a 30-minute question. I would have thought.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to our next favourite segment, which is Word Association with Thomas. So we did this for the first time on the last podcast, and the feedback was fantastic. Everyone loved it. The comments were that we you could see the cogs working. But obviously today is a little bit different, because Thomas has had to go through the ordeal of Liverpool getting beat by Everton. He drank a lot of rum last night. And then struggled to sleep, but stayed in bed until 1 o'clock. So let's see how we get on, eh?
This could be very, very good, or an absolute nightmare. And I love that. I love the fact we don't know what we're going to get.
It's the unknown, isn't it, Daz? I'm almost a little bit worried. You've got like butterflies.
I am nervous, mate. I'll be honest with you. I am nervous.
Come on, let's just get on with it, will you?
All right, Daz, you go first.
Okay, my first one is current handball rule.
Shit.
You can see him looking for words on the top.
All right. Carlo Ancelotti.
Fat Italian.
Davy Moyes.
Gollum.
Dear me.
All right. Duncan Ferguson.
A robber beater upper.
Yeah, and soon to be Thomas.
I'll explain that later.
Diving in the game.
Necessary.
Necessary.
You can't explain. All right. VAR.
Absolutely. It's just the biggest load of I've ever seen. Get rid of that.
Okay, go on, Dad.
Tom Davis.
London Fashion Week.
Darren Drysdale, referee who stood up to the Swindon player.
Yeah. All right. Good lad.
Well done.
Good lad.
Daz, last one for you.
My last one. Short corners.
Brain dead.
Okay, and the last one for today, Thomas. Everton to finish above Liverpool in the Premier League this year.
Man, I'm going to get above us. Useless wannabes.
Okay, so go quite to plan, Daz.
No, I hope we've got a bleeper.
Yeah.
Well, why did you ask me so stupid questions?
So that was fun again, but I'd like to apologise for anyone who is a little bit sensitive. He doesn't mean what he says. It's just like
nice guy.
It's a form of Tourette's, I think. Brilliant. Love that.
We might get a grant for Thomas. I don't know.
Yeah, we need some sort of support. Genius. Well done, mate. You did well there.
Well done.
You even answered some with single words, which is unusual.
Yeah, but
he just doesn't look happy, does he?
He doesn't look happy at all.
I'm fucking not. I'm not happy.
All right, so let's bring this episode to a close. I've really enjoyed that. Question from the audience is brilliant. I love the word association. It's been an interesting weekend. Hated every bit of the football. Daz, do you want to give us a final thought?
If people just listen to this on Spotify and Apple Tunes and things, go to the YouTube, because to see some of these videos the lads have sent in is just brilliant. And thanks for doing them. It really is appreciated.
I love the fact that Dan has just called Apple Tunes. It's somewhere between Apple Podcasts and iTunes. If you go to either one of them, you can find us.
That's why I don't do that bit, Si. Get on Spotify, that one as well.
Names, just terrible. All right, Tom, what have you got?
I've got nothing. Just let's finish this so I can go have me tea.
Drink some more rum.
Yeah,
it's been a tough weekend. It's been a long time coming. I think Everton well deserved the win. Hate to say that, as you said earlier, Tom. That's definitely a bit bitter to say, but it'd be good to see Liverpool coming back in the next couple of weeks. We need to get a couple of wins on the board, because right now confidence is so low. City look like they're running away with it. We need Villa to pick up again, Dad, so they can finish in that top 10. Let's see how the rest of the year goes. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can listen to us on the podcast, download it from Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, wherever you want to get it from, Daz. Or you can go and visit the website at www.threementhefootball.com. If you've got a video question you want to get in, let us know. Get it in. That was a brilliant section. I'm sure we'll have more for next week. We'll keep doing this. Keep the questions coming. We're really enjoying that. All right, lads, have a great week.
Take care. See you,
Take it
boys.
easy. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.